Welcome back. This morning on Chronicle, we're sharing the stories of people impacted by organ, tissue, and eye donation. A man from Waterloo, Nebraska was able to save dozens of people after his death. And Chronicle's Cal Larson speaks with his children about what their father's legacy means to them.
Timothy Peterson, Big Tim to some, Swabby to others, a man who helped anyone and everyone while he was alive, and now even more since he's been gone.
74.
On this couch sits 3 of 5 siblings, Tanya, Saraya, and Zach. Also on this couch, 3 organ donors, thanks to their father. Tim Peterson died in a motorcycle accident in November of 2021. Peterson's organs and tissue have gone to 74 people. His daughter, Saraya.
I kind of literally jaw dropped, and just cried because I was like, my dad was always a hero in my eyes growing up, no matter what. And then now here he is in such a tragic thing, getting to save so many lives and impact so many lives.
Peterson's kidneys, bone and skin grafts, and pancreas all donated. Walk in the lobby of Live On Nebraska in Omaha and you'll see a list of donor heroes. In the bottom right,
did we think our dad would ever impact this much? Yeah. No, and now it does, and it holds just that special place in our heart knowing that there are other families who received it and are living healthier lives because of it.
Kara Cordell with Live On Nebraska says Peterson's gift of life simply can't be overstated.
One life save is a family that has not gone through the loss of their loved one. It's a birthday that they have, and it's a huge impact.
As Tanya explains the many memories of their father in photo form.
So there's Tim. This is how it was when Zach was in the hospital and Tim didn't leave his side.
Zach and Saraya also remember their father.
There's 74 silver linings out there.
And find peace in the fact after their dad passed away, it was almost expected that he'd continue to serve others.
Yes, it was. It really was. I was like, that does not surprise me. That is a him thing.
Cal Larson, KETV, Newswatch 7.
That is incredible. 74 silver linings. But you can also save lives as a living donor. Talk about that need and the process to find a match is Dr. Scott Westfall. He's a transplant nephrologist for Nebraska Medicine. Doctor, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
You bet. First off, people who don't know, what is a living donor?
Yeah, so a living donor is a living person who chooses to donate a piece of themselves, often a kidney or a liver.
So what organs can be used?
Kidney and liver are the common types of living donors, especially kidney is by far and away the most common living donor.
So how do you do it? What's the process?
Yeah, so the process is a donor comes to the team and says, I want to donate my kidney. Sometimes it's to someone they know. Sometimes it's what we call altruistic or non-directed donors, which is just someone who feels moved to donate their kidney to somebody in need. So they'll contact our team, we see them in clinic, go through the risks and talk about the procedure, and if they elect to proceed, then we schedule surgery.
But in liver, obviously you can't donate your entire liver.
No, so with liver, it's a piece of the liver that can then still be transplanted in someone and function, and with that small piece of a liver can do very well in the recipient.
And it acts just as a normal liver does, close to?
Yeah, people do very well with a living donor liver, for sure.
Now, living donors just one kind of transplants. I mean, there's also deceased donors, as we saw. You mentioned also the expanded criteria donors. Is there a preference? Is there a better way? I mean, is the living donor better than getting an organ from a deceased person?
Yeah, so I mean, all transplants are better than the alternative, which in kidney failure is dialysis. But if the option is a deceased donor transplant or a living donor transplant, the best option is always living donor transplants. They last longer, they function better, and also patients don't have to wait as long. We talked about, so the waiting list can be very long,
right.
And a living donor essentially eliminates the need for a waiting list. Instead of sort of waiting and working their way up the list, the recipient gets approved, the donor gets approved, and then we do the surgery.
Nice. Why is the wait list for kidneys so long? I mean, people have 2 kidneys, you'd think you'd have plenty to spare.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the sort of epidemic of kidney disease in the United States has really exploded over the last 10, 20 years. And so the need for kidney failure is just becoming such a common condition that the need for kidneys really outweighs the number of donors available. And so it just translates to long waiting times.
Right. People with I understand blood type O are ideal, right? Why is that?
Yeah, so in order to do a transplant, we have to transplant compatible blood groups. So when we talk about blood group O, that is the universal donor. So an O donor can donate to any of the other blood groups. So O's are really sort of unique and special because we're not limited by that blood barrier.
Right. Now, someone who is not a type O or may not know their blood type, they may think they can't be a living donor. Is that true?
Not at all. So any blood type can donate. And there's a lot of different strategies that we have to get around some of those incompatibility issues. So while O's are, yes, can donate to everybody, all blood types can donate and are valuable.
Take me through the procedure if you can, if someone who actually wants to be a living donor. If I came to you and said, hey, I want to donate a kidney, what do I need to do?
So if you want to donate a kidney, the first step would be to contact our team at Nebraska Medicine. And then we have donor coordinators that would call you back and get in touch and start talking through the process. Then the next step is we usually start with some basic blood work, and if things continue to look good, the kidneys are healthy, there's no other sort of contraindications to donate, then we bring you into clinic. And the clinic days are sort of full days. You see multiple members of the transplant team, or the donation team and the transplant team. And then we sort of, if everyone agrees to move forward, we move forward, and then we schedule the surgery.
And can I direct where my kidney goes? Can I come in and say, hey, I got a relative who needs a kidney, I want them to have it? Or does it just go to somebody on the waiting list?
No, absolutely. So donors, and that's actually the most common scenario is, a family member needs a kidney, so somebody comes forward and says, I want to donate to a family member. And there are times when, because of things like blood group incompatibility, where it's not possible, but that's when we can build things like chains or swaps where different donors can donate to different recipients, so everybody gets a living donor compatible transplant.
Yeah, I was reading about the kidney chain, and it's actually remarkable. So if you wanted to just be altruistic and help somebody, you just donate in general, and you can work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And altruistic donors truly are, in my opinion, superheroes. I mean, they are giving a piece of themselves to start these chains that can lead to many, if not dozens, of individuals getting transplanted.
Very good. Dr. Westfall, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, next on Chronicle, a rare lung disease put a 14-year-old's life on the line, silenced her beautiful singing voice. So next, how a transplant brought her more time and how she's using her gifts to give back. First, if you have any questions or stories about organ transplantation, have you been through one, you know someone who needs one, send us an email. It's news@ketv.com. We'll be right back.